Welcome to the Paisans podcast. We're your hosts, the brothers from other mothers, Dante, Dave, and Sark. Join us as we talk about current events, our wives, kids, or whatever else life is throwing at us this week. You're with the Paisans, you're with family.
So let's talk. What the New York Knicks have done thus far in the 2025 playoffs is obviously not impossible by definition, but it is most certainly improbable. In fact, it is likely the most improbable run in NBA postseason history. Let me count the ways, beginning with the obvious. The Knicks are the first team to overcome a 20-point deficit to win consecutive games in the playoffs, at least since 1998. That's when we started keeping track of that. In fact, if you calculate the win probabilities they faced in each of their two games in Boston, their chances of being 2-0 right now were roughly 6,500 to 1. By comparison, you have a markedly better chance of being dealt four of a kind in a five-card hand in poker than the Knicks had of being where they are right now.
Unfortunately, I haven't been home to watch, but I mean, they shocked the Celtics in game one. And what happened in game two?
Well, it was last night. It was the exact same thing. It was literally the blueprint, like exactly the same. Celtics went up by 20 again. So they went up 20 again in the second half. It was the third quarter. They were up 20 points. I don't remember how much the deficit was in the fourth, but they came back again, 1 by 1. Brunson hit a free throw right at the the winning point on a free throw.
Wow.
It's pretty remarkable, honestly. I mean, it's actually the most enjoyable thing of my sports life because first off, it's pretty pathetic, but also when you have lower expectations and they perform well, and I've sort of not given up on the Knicks, but I've thought they've been sort of hopeless up until recently, up until like the last 2-3 years.
But you're waiting for the other shoe to drop,
right? And this series in particular against the Celtics, they were heavily they're big underdogs. The Knicks, the Celtics were heavily favored.
Beat the Celtics all year, right? I think they lost to the Celtics.
Yeah, they lost all four to the Celtics all year, and then and most of the games were not even that close, except for the last one. But that doesn't matter now. It's the playoffs now, and the Knicks have a very gritty team. I mean, they have very tough players who perform in the big spots, and that's becoming very evident. So that's exciting. And they're still, to this day, right now, the Knicks are up 2-0 right now when we're recording this on the Celtics. The Celtics are still favored to win the series.
Wow.
On in a lot of the betting sports books. So that just shows you what's still the thought there, which actually might play into the Knicks' advantage because they've been doubted this whole time.
Yeah. So it's good to be the underdog.
Can be.
I think in New York, it's good.
Yeah. Do you think the other cities and the other teams play up a little bit just because it's New York when they play some of these teams in any of these sports?
I think.
Yeah. Do you?
I think they might too. I mean, just because it's New York gets all the attention. New York, the athletes get a lot of the spotlight. They play a lot of primetime games just because they're New York usually. I mean, look at the Jets the last couple of years. I mean, as soon as they got Aaron Rodgers, they were on like every primetime spot. Anytime the Giants are good, they're on a primetime spot. But like same thing for the Knicks and NBA. I mean, it's one of the few very big markets in that sport. So
yes. Well, from a league perspective, you'd want your big market teams to do well.
Yeah.
Not that you tip the scales, but you'd want them to do well.
Do you think it has anything to do with how the fans interact with the athletes in New York? And that's why these athletes want to beat them more? Because New York fans are very vocal. They're very loud. They yell things. I
don't know.
I mean, in other places too, though.
I was going to say,
course.
other cities are vicious. They're vicious.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking more like about just the pressure of all the media and the constant scrutiny every day for hours, Does that, do you as a player get like, this guy's tracking every free throw and, every time I miss a free throw, he's shouting the percentage at me or something. It's like, you're a professional, so it shouldn't bother you. But at the same time, it's sort of like, who needs it? In these small markets, I think people are generally more supportive. Now, that's anecdotal, but I don't know.
Well, I think
What do
there's
you
something
think?
to that with the Knicks, at least right now. Because, I mean, if you look at a guy like Jalen Brunson, I mean, he's been in these big moments in big championship games for a good portion of his playing career, going back to college. I mean, he played, I think, 4 years at Villanova or multiple years at Villanova, and they won a championship while he was there.
Where our
So,
new pope is from, by the way, graduated
oh yeah,
Villanova.
that's right. He graduated.
Side
I saw
fact
that
there.
actually.
Yes.
Yes.
Pope Leo.
That's right.
That's why the Knicks are obviously winning. They're the team of destiny, clearly, because they have all Villanova players. For anyone who's not familiar, and Jalen Brunson being one of them, he's just rock solid. I mean, the guy's unbelievably clutch, and if you do that in a place like New York with a fan base like the Knicks fan base, because I mean, that was part of the reason why I asked that question earlier, because I don't know if you've seen those videos on the internet of the fans, like post game reactions, like in the streets.
Yes.
It's very funny. So, but I mean, when you have a guy like Jalen Brunson, the fan base in the city, the whole city gets behind you, and I mean, this guy's like he's untouchable right now in the city. I mean, we know that can easily turn, but right now he's untouchable.
He's earned it. I mean, and
Yes.
last season too. I got to be honest. Like he's like the whole team. I mean, it's not fair to say the whole team, but
Well, yeah, it's really not, especially right now. Because I mean, so did either of you get to watch the game last night? Game 2?
So I didn't see 1 or 2 against Boston. I saw a couple of the other games. So I should know this, but were those first 2 games in New York?
No, they were in Boston.
And Boston is still favored to win.
Yes,
that is very interesting,
right.
yeah,
Isn't that
really
interesting?
Yes,
because the Knicks have 3 home games left to still play in the series potentially, and
so
Boston
that's kind
only
of
has
where you're
2.
going. Like, why are they? Why would that be the prediction? Why would that be where the money is right now?
Well, didn't Boston win the championship last year?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons. So I think a lot of these people think that like Boston's gonna, they're gonna really they're gonna flip a switch. I guess that's sort of normal to think that. They are very good. They played terribly these first 2 games. Boston. They had 20-point leads and they blew them in the second half. I mean, and what's interesting when I'm watching those games, it's last night I was watching that game and I was just like, all right, well, they did this the other night, so I'm not too worried.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you don't want to be down by 20, but you're sitting there like, I mean, no lead is safe in the NBA. And then they just start chipping away. They just keep hanging around. And then Brunson gets a moment, and he hits big shots to bring him back. Mikal Bridges was unbelievable in the fourth quarter. He played terribly for 3 quarters, but he played pretty much the whole game. And then he scored all his points in the fourth quarter. He was like lights out. And he made the defensive play. It was so literally in game 1 and game 2 ended with Mikal Bridges stealing the ball from Jason Tatum. Literally, while Jason Tatum was trying to shoot to win the game for Boston. That's how both of those games ended. They also had a 20-point swing in the second half. Like it's crazy. They're not out of it. Like they could still win this, obviously, but they're not in a great spot either. So, I mean, they're going to come out in game 3 and play really good, I think, Boston. I would highly doubt if they didn't, but
I'm sure there's a stat right out there. If you're up 2-0, what's the probability? Or if you're down 0-2, what's the probability?
Right.
Sure there is. Yeah, we could probably
It's all built in. It's got to be all built into the algorithm. Your records thus far, your records against one another thus far, all that stuff's got to be calculated into the algorithm. The number of games, where their locations are, and to still pick Boston is. So you're basically saying in a best of 5, right? Not even
some prediction that they're
not even a best of 5 because the Knicks only have to win 2.
Right. Oh, you're talking
so
about
it's
left.
not even. It's like like the Knicks don't even have to win the best of 5. They have to win
2 more games.
2 more games.
2 more games. Yeah. I don't even think you can. I don't know how to explain that other than saying it that way, I guess. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Now, even if the Knicks do get past this, they still have, another round before the championship. But I mean, the last two games have been, you couldn't ask for any more, and it's just so exciting. And
and if you're Boston, you got to go, how much of a lead do we need to feel secure in winning?
I don't think you could have a big enough lead, honestly, at this point. How could you ever feel like a lead is safe when you've done it 2 nights in a row? I mean, and
you'd never be comfortable.
They're going to come out and play well, but that is going to be in the back of their minds. And when it gets into the fourth quarter, if it's a close game, that is going to be in the back of their minds. The fact that they haven't been able to hold on, even though they won the championship last year. This year's team is still going to have that fresh in their mind, I'm sure. It'll be interesting to see how the Knicks respond with this lead and how they potentially close this out. But anyway, by the way, I looked up a stat, NBA record when team is up 2-0 in the playoffs. They said the team wins 92.6% of the time.
Yeah. So they're predicting some type of a miracle for Boston, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Still favor Boston. Is that the line though, Dave? Like, is that Las Vegas favoring?
So when they say they're still favored, they're talking about how the betting public is viewing, and that's right. Las Vegas. So right now, what I saw was minus 120 still for the Celtics to win the series, and the Knicks were now plus 100. So you bet 100, win 100. You have to bet 120 to win 100 if you bet on the Celtics.
Then the Knicks are basically favored.
Well, no, it's about a toss up, but then the Celtics are still. You have to pay more to win $100 to bet on the Celtics right now. Basically, you have to pay 120 to win 100 versus just 100 to 100. That's what that means. That's why they're the favorite, because you win less money from your bet.
Oh, right.
So,
my God, that's ridiculous.
So you have to risk more money to bet on them to win the same amount. That's what that means. So it's also just very close though at that rate. It's basically they're saying it's a coin flip, but there's a slight edge to which means that more people are betting on Boston still.
Yeah, of course.
Which is interesting. I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons that we mentioned they won the championship last year. They are a very good team. They're heavily favored. There was not a single person who was picking the Knicks to win. Stephen A. Smith was going on this whole cowardly thing, like, just get 6 games out of it. Just get 6 games. Like, he's saying stuff like that.
Lay down before it even starts, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Why play?
So these, part of it that is theatrical, obviously, when you talk about a guy like Stephen A. Smith or any of these people, but they were doubted. These guys hear that, and I'm sure that's driving them right now. So, and they had also a very tough series against Detroit where they played really close games and won really close games.
Yeah, they were close.
So they're tested right now. They're battle tested. So, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but that would be, I think the Knicks winning a championship would be one of the more interesting things that I'd ever witnessed for the city of New York.
Don't get ahead of yourself, please. Good God.
I think that's a championship though that the whole city would be like crazy for.
Unless you think that there's a massive Brooklyn Nets contingent who are going to be upset at the Knicks.
There definitely is there.
I know, like the Nets moved out of New Jersey, moved to Brooklyn with like such fanfare, and they got Kyrie, and it was like they were going to be the next power team, and then they just they got Harden for a while, right? They had Kyrie and Harden at one point.
Durant. They had all 3 of those guys.
They did have
but it was not. It was short lived. They gave up. They had to blow it up because it obviously didn't work. I mean, the Nets are they're the second-rate team in the city by far. I think I think that's the biggest disparity in all of the sports. I think there's more of a split in baseball and more of a split in football, but I think more people that associate with New York sports are rooting for the Knicks versus the Nets.
Well, it's probably in LA, like the Lakers and the Clippers.
Yeah. I mean, it's what the Mets and the used to be to the Yankees and what the Jets probably are to the Giants.
But I don't feel like there's that. I don't know nearly as many Nets fans as I know Jets fans.
Oh, yeah. The Nets and the Knicks is like a completely different level. It really is. The separation is a whole different level.
I don't think I know any Nets fans.
I
don't think. Do you know, Dave?
I know. I can think of one person who has told me that this guy I play softball with. He has told me that he's still a Nets fan. You're just like, okay, that's interesting. I think from someone like myself or like us who grew up in New Jersey, I could understand it if you got into the Nets when you were a certain age and they're like, oh, this is my team. I could understand that, but no one from Brooklyn is like, I love the Nets. That's for sure. Like, no one that's lived in lived in Brooklyn is sitting there saying like, oh yeah, this is my team now. Like, absolutely not. And the Knicks are just way better anyway, so it's easy to jump on the bandwagon. So
yeah, and when you knew that things were going downhill with the Nets, or like when they had to jump the shark, is when they started doing select games at Nassau Coliseum, so that Long Island fans could get a chance to see them play. First of all, it's like half the size, I think, half the number of seats to Barclays, which they built apparently for that team.
I actually remember when I was a kid in like the late 90s, early 2000s. They had Jason Kidd, they had Kenyon Martin, and Sam Cassell, Keith Van Horn, and they were pretty good. That team. They went to, I think, a championship or two, and lost. I don't even remember.
Think they ever went to the championship.
They might not have went to the championship, but
they might have been to like a
Eastern Final or something. Yeah. It's possible. Yeah, but Jason Kidd was really good. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. The Nets, like you said, Dave, they've always been sort of like the afterthought, and they've had a few good players here and there. They've had a couple of moments here and there where they've sort of flashed, but moving to Brooklyn, I don't know. That felt like a money move, and I'm sure that there's more money in Brooklyn, but at the same time, that hasn't worked out the way that I think the people expected it might.
I don't know the whole story. I mean, I don't know much of the story of why they moved, I would say. I mean, one of the things that you can easily look at from the outside is Jay-Z was involved from Brooklyn. Like, I think he had some say in that, but I don't even know if he still owns the team or not, or has an ownership stake. And he was always a minority owner. He was not majority, but
New Jersey, other than the Devils, hasn't had much luck with, teams. And it's too bad because it's bizarre that the Jets and the Giants both play New Jersey, and yet there's no acknowledgement of that. Even when they come in and say, we're here in New York, it's like, no, you're not. New Jersey gets no respect,
I have a feeling there's some players that come into the league that are potentially drafted by the Jets and the Giants that may not even realize until they're there. Right. They're like, wait, we're in New Jersey? Like they have no idea. They would just assume it was New York. I guess there's more money to being New York, which I feel like it really should be New Jersey City anyway. If we're talking about, like the Manhattan area, it's kind of more level with New Jersey. New York's more north.
I think you're right, Dave. It's about the market. And they just need to call them the New York. I would swear that the Giants were called the New York, New Jersey Giants for like one season. In like 93 or 1982, like early 80s. Yes. But that people were like, what? And they just were like, never mind.
Yeah, I remember at one point, I don't know if it was like an official marketing push or something like that, but there was some type of a campaign around that where people, I think, like selectively started calling them that. And maybe they even developed like some merch around that. I don't know if it was official, but I do remember that. I do remember like being young and my father even telling me that they were going to become the New Jersey Giants, or people wanted them to be NYNJ. And like even on TV, they might have referred to them like that for a while, but it never.
That's what I recall seeing.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the graphic on TV, like NY/NJ Giants.
I think they were trying to get some traction with that. And
yeah, maybe it just never took. That could be.
Got rid of it after one season. Didn't even give it a chance.
Well,
get New Jersey
one season is giving it a chance. Yeah. They probably found it too confusing because most people probably then said, like, wait a minute. If they play in New Jersey, why did they call them New York? Like, what's the New York for? Like once you introduce the idea, people ask the question, and then all of a sudden you're explaining.
I know. And then if you guys get to do it, then, other states are going to want to do it too.
If you let one, then you have to let everyone.
Well, and if you think about it, if you're selling that merchandise, like people from New Jersey are not going to really have an issue buying something that says New York on it. but the other way around, like you're just going to get half the buyers because nobody from New York is really going to want something that says New Jersey Giants on it.
That's a good point. That's probably, I mean, if you think it's going to cost them money, then that's a likely incentive.
Dave, I was going to ask, like going back to the Knicks for a minute, like how important was last year's run for what they're doing now?
They do have different guys on the team, so Karl Anthony Towns was not there last year. Mikal Bridges was not there last year. So for Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart, I guess I couldn't hurt. I mean, they're playing the exact same way that they played last year, and I mean, Josh Hart is just like he's just unbelievable when he plays. He's the epitome of just like the guy that's willing to do whatever it takes. He's the Knicks version of Draymond Green, I guess. Yeah, he can do a little bit of everything, get rebounds, play some defense, shoot when you need him to. But so like I think it helps those guys. And
if I remember, like when the season ended last year, at least as far as the press was, I know we were just talking about the press being brutal, but if I remember, there were no real hard feelings against Brunson. It was almost like, well, how long can this guy single-handedly carry the load for this team?
That was my memory too. Yeah.
It was like if he just has some support around him, they can be great.
The coverage of the Knicks has been mostly positive, I'd say, the last 2 to 3 years for sure. Definitely since Jalen Brunson got there. But maybe even like shortly before that, it's been mostly positive. And I think that has a lot to do with just how Jalen Brunson plays and then how he carries himself off the court. I'm not going to say he's a well-known public figure nationally, but he has his own podcast and he's everything you can tell is just like a real stand-up guy, good person. Seems down to earth, when you hear him talk. So I think he just seems relatable to the fan base, and I think the fan base has really latched onto him, and he's really riding that well. He's someone who's handling the pressure of New York. We were talking about how it can get to some guys. I think he's really shown that he can handle it.
Yeah.
But maybe this is just their time now because of the experience.
Yep.
And then you mentioned battle tested after the last series. You know what I mean?
So it feels good.
I liken it to when Dante and I used to watch the Knicks playoffs games when we were in college. And it's like every year it seemed like they could have done it. They never did.
Yeah.
But every year you had the same aspirations and they had likable dudes.
94. We were, I think it was our sophomore year, and they went to the finals and they played the Rockets. And that was the infamous O.J. Simpson. We were watching the finals. I think it was game 4. It wasn't like game 6 or 7, but it was, maybe it was. It wasn't like game 7, but it was like a moment. I still remember we were in the place on Livingston Avenue. And like so excited, and all of a sudden they just cut to like a helicopter view where they're following O.J. Simpson in the white Bronco.
Yeah.
And I started screaming at the TV, like, what? Like, I'm thinking, who made the decision that this was going to be more important than NBA finals? Like, at that time, you know how much NBC paid to broadcast the NBA finals? And they make the decision to cut to chasing OJ. I was livid. I couldn't believe it. To this day, it's like it still blows me away. Like, what? It's just unbelievable. And can you imagine, some poor dude, to be fair, some poor dude in like a director's booth and at NBC Studios is like, do I cut to like this or do I stay on the NBA finals? It's like, oh my God. Yeah. But the Knicks ended up losing that I think it was in 7 games to the Rockets. And then I think it was 99 that they went back again. Like,
yes.
Right,
that one I remember
Camby and Allen Houston.
Yeah,
that was crazy. And that game might have been like 5 games. Like that was, I don't think they really put up. I think they lost that relatively quickly.
I was young in that one, but I remember a little bit. I think we were an 8 seed. I think we were the last team in, and we went all the way to the finals. And we played the Spurs, who still had David Robinson and Tim Duncan. It was he's not a rookie, but he was like second year or third year, something like that.
Tim Duncan is just going to methodically chop you down.
Right. I mean that team was fun and it was great. They have some moments for sure. I mean, what's interesting to me is that I actually got into the Knicks because of Dante, because Dante, our father, is not a big NBA guy, but I just remember like what I remember is like I loved Patrick Ewing when I first got into them, which was around that like '94 team. Like Patrick Ewing was my favorite player.
Yeah.
He was your favorite player, Dante.
Right. Well, yeah, that's like,
that probably makes sense.
He was like the guy I modeled my game after, to whatever that matters, He had that low post turnaround jumper, and it was like, anyway. God, Dave, you were saying?
Well, it's just fun and interesting to hear your perspective on it, like how you guys were viewing it at that time, especially the '94 finals, because I don't remember that. Like what I remember is that I like Patrick Ewing, and it was probably because you like Patrick Ewing. So
that's right.
So yeah, it's just fun to hear that perspective, and I forgot about the whole OJ thing. That was, of course, during the Knicks finals.
Oh yes. Well, you were like 6, right? So
I would have been 6 or 7. Yeah,
in '94.
Yeah.
So you were too young to remember that, and then. Yeah, years later. Okay, so come 99, 98, you'd remember that. That would have
a
been
little
like,
bit more. Yeah, a little bit. Mm-hmm. I still forget a lot of it, honestly, but
I vaguely remember you screaming at the TV. I remember the days to follow. Also, we were doing our internship or whatever at J&J, and we'd be like in the cafeteria, and they'd have more stuff going on with the trials and everything. It was like such a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It all muddles together, but yeah, like something happened in that time, Dave. I started to understand the game of basketball. I had never really understood. Nobody ever taught me how to play. So I started to understand it. I started to appreciate it and play it a little bit. And then I started getting into the Knicks because I wasn't into football at that point. And, now I think from what I can see online, the 90s are looked at as this very nostalgic era for basketball. Where you just had some of the best players, some of the greatest games, some of the greatest rivalries.
Sure.
And not to say that they haven't been great ever since, but, at least for us, right, that was sort of peak time. So, I was like really into it at that point. And that was when I came and lived with Dad. So that was like, let's see, that would have been 97 and 98.
Yeah.
Till I got married in 98. So it would have been like end of 96 through 97. And that's when I was, of course, I was influencing you every chance I could get because, for one thing, Dad didn't Dad didn't care for basketball, so it was great fun that I could take you out.
That was the same with me. I mean, I wasn't particularly into basketball when you and I were living together in the apartment with the other dudes, and you got me into them. Like that, you were generating the excitement, and it just so happened you were getting into them. They were getting really good. They had the run, and I think even in between those two runs, they still had some shorter playoff runs that were still really exciting. So we always had something that we were rooting for, and those players were always characters. So that's what you and I loved so much, was they were like individual action figures, these guys, like Anthony Mason.
Oh yes.
Right. You had Charles Oakley, John Starks.
Larry Johnson was on that team.
Larry Johnson when he came.
Yes, eventually Larry Johnson.
Yes.
I mean, Anthony Mason was enormous. I mean, he was probably 6'9", and he looked like he was about 6 foot across. His shoulders were huge. I mean, I couldn't believe the size of some of those guys. They're playing basketball, and yet they were so broad shouldered. And I guess from reaching up constantly 1,000 times a day, they get these deltoids that look like bowling balls.
Yes.
He's like, good. I mean, Anthony Mason, my God, now he's since passed away.
Yeah.
He died a couple of years ago.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I actually saw him at the Garden. I forget why I was there. It was not. It could have.
I saw him too, Dave. Were we together? I passed him in the crowd at the Garden after a game. No, I must have been with Dave. I think I was with Joey.
Because I don't remember what I was at the Garden for when I saw him. I assume it actually was one of the times I was there for a Knicks game, because why would he be there for something else? But yeah, no, I mean, he was huge when I saw him then. But then, I remember a few years after I saw him, I heard he passed away. It might even be close to 10 years he's been passed away now at this point.
Yeah.
Could be right. Yeah. It's crazy how fast the time goes.
I know.
But like you were saying, that there were you're right. There were sort of characters, because you had, not only did you have the guys on the Knicks, but then you also had like Reggie Miller, or
They're
like the guys on
enemies.
the other teams.
Yeah.
Yes, they're enemies.
Like
They all had
action
like their
figures.
weaknesses. They all had their weaknesses. Like Reggie Miller versus Starks, like who could do more 3-pointers, right?
Yes,
That whole
yes,
thing. And oh
yes.
yeah.
And Reggie
And the
Miller
Knicks
played
were
the head
just
game.
so much. We were talking one of these other episodes about how defense is going away in basketball, particularly, and they were known for their defense. I mean, that was like
Yes.
just tough New York street ball
Yes.
defense. You know,
Yes.
physical. I love the fact that the dudes on the other team would fall. They put their hand up like to get, and Knicks would just walk right over you. Sometimes maybe step on you. You know.
Oh, I know. That was like Pat Riley had a thing. Like, if I ever see you help up another player, you're like running laps all night. You know, like,
Yep.
it's true. It's true.
When did Pat Riley stop coaching the Knicks? I guess he went from the Knicks to the Heat, right?
To the Heat.
Was that
Yeah,
a straight
yeah.
transition?
That's a good question.
I think it was.
And then it was
It's hard to remember.
Jeff Van Gundy maybe was the next. I don't remember if it went.
Van Gundy
Riley
was the
to-
coach who took over.
Yeah.
I remember
I do
more of the
remember
Van
that.
Gundy stuff, which was definitely the '99 team for the team of the late '90s.
Yes. Yeah, there was some craziness. The infamous shot where he's clinging to Alonzo Mourning's leg.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
The game was a lot different in that era. I mean, one of you mentioned it earlier. Yeah, maybe to you guys as you were watching it, in your early 20, late teenage years, early 20s, like of course that's going to have a big impact on you. But I feel like it was different. I mean, I think you had this era of basically with the Michael Jordan era, and they played pretty physical. I think not that Jordan was necessarily a physical player, but the teams he
Had to be
played in like
strong in that
the
era.
early '90s and the late '80s, like the Pistons team. Actually, that team was pretty rough, and like so you had that era, and then he kind of finished it and kind of handed it off to like the LeBron era, and I feel like the LeBron era is a softer, like the game is more about gamesmanship now. It's like, and that's actually something Jalen Brunson's really good at. Is just like finding the right angles and position to maybe draw a foul while he's shooting, give the Knicks free throws. It's like there's some of that, but then some of these guys they flop, and
Yeah, some of them.
it's becoming part of the game, and I don't know. They just don't seem as tough. I will say the Knicks are playing some physical games right now, and the refs are actually letting them play a little bit, which is kind of nice to see. But it's definitely not like it used to be. I mean, like Jeff Van Gundy was grabbing onto Alonzo Mourning's leg in a brawl, basically. I mean, that's. I guess that Detroit Pistons Ron Artest brawl in the arena, kind of
Meta World Peace.
Maybe ended a lot of like a lot of they get chippy once in a while, but there's been nothing like that.
That was crazy.
Mm-hmm. Then Wallace is fouled, and Wallace did. Wallace right at Artest. This has potential to be serious if they don't get between. He'd have to walk past the Pacer bench to go. Now Artest has jumped over the scorer's table and is trying to get down to the bench. Artest is in the stands. Oh, this is awful. Fans are getting involved.
So Mike, that reminded me of an old Knicks story, because not Nick, our friend Nick, but Knicks, like the New York Knicks story, because when we were in the 90s, Dave, who was that? He just died within the last couple of years too. Bill Walton. Bill Walton. It doesn't matter what the Knicks are doing. This is always seen. And Mike would like, it's true. All he does is shit on the Knicks. Like, it doesn't matter what the situation is. Like, Knicks are up by 22, and it's just like, it's like, with rinky dink fouls. Once again, the Knickerbockers simply incapable of following the rules. I have to be honest. If I was Patrick Ewing, I don't know why he just doesn't hang himself at this point.
Oh, yeah.
The truth is, they should be up by 50. They're only up by 25. The Knickerbockers, because he loved to say the Knickerbockers.
right.
The Knickerbockers, I want to punch this guy in the face.
Right.
And it's just like, it's never good enough. Doesn't matter what it is. Whatever they just did, they screwed it up. If they're winning, they should be winning by more. If they make a mistake, it's just, the sky is falling. Nonstop.
He had like a 25-year contract with the station to be like the premier Knicks announcer. It's like
The Knicks are being effectively crucified by the Pacers. Reggie Miller running rings around John Starks. Just one wonders why John Starks got up this morning. Knicks just being outplayed and outcoached, and there's nothing about this organization that is worth saving, quite frankly.